This is what the wannabe rich buy, whereas this is what the really rich buy. This is the story of how I picked the best 5.5 purchases during the last crashes and how you can do the same to grow your wealth. This could be the best purchase I've ever made, but there's a problem. You're being set up to fail. So consumer debt recently hit a new record high of $15.8 trillion. That's shocking, but what's even more worrying is nobody ever warned us about this. Talking about money is extremely frowned upon, but with the cost of living rising and energy prices soaring, it's more important than ever. However, maybe they want us to keep buying things we don't need with money we don't have. Many people still call our current system capitalism, but in reality, what has been happening is just creditism. This stems back to 1971 when President Nixon decided to take the USA off the gold standard. Before this point, you could actually walk into any bank and demand gold for your dollars at a value of $35 per ounce to be exact. However, now banks don't have to hold these gold reserves, which allows them much more freedom to issue loans and create money from thin air. This has led to credit becoming the key driver of economic growth, meaning if credit slows down, the system would go into crisis, and that's what we're seeing starting to happen now. Now that you're aware of this debt trap, this is how you can escape it. So there are two different ways of thinking when it comes to buying things. The first is the wannabe rich. You've probably seen these people flexing their designer clothes and their flashy cars on Instagram. Now, there's nothing wrong with buying a few nice things. However, it becomes an issue when your purchases are fueled by the need to impress others. This need to look rich makes people spend money they don't have, resulting in them being buried in a mountain of debt that they'll never escape from. At this point, they don't own their stuff. The expensive debt repayments mean their stuff owns them. The second is the really rich. We mainly focus on buying things that make us money, and we use credit wisely to build our wealth. This results in the things we own actually giving us freedom rather than chaining us to jobs we hate. This way of thinking becomes even more important during a crash as every penny is even more valuable. So the big question is, what do the really rich buy? Number one is reliable stocks. I'll tell you why I'm outside the Apple store in just a moment. Investing in stocks has never been easier, and with the right portfolio, you can really take advantage of a stock market crash and build your wealth. In the early days of running my businesses, I was required to attend monthly meetings with my landlord. In one particular meeting, I realised that the secretary had a new computer, which in itself wouldn't have been that unusual. However, this computer was an all-in-one unit in shocking blue, and it really stood out, so I had to ask her about it. It turns out that that computer was an Apple iMac. This was the first time I'd ever seen an Apple product. Looking back, I should have invested in Apple stock in the early 2000s when I first saw that computer, but I was busy running my business and cash flow was tight. Fast forward around 7 years, and I watched Steve Jobs charismatically announce the iPhone. At that point, I knew I had to own one. I also knew if I felt this way, then many others would as well. So I bought an iPhone straight away, and also the company's stock. I wasn't going to let this slip through my fingers a second time. After this, we were hit with the 2008 recession, but as Apple continually innovated by releasing first the MacBook Air and then the iPad, they managed to stay pretty recession-proof as demand for their products only increased. There are three different types of reliable stocks. First are dividend payers such as Starbucks and Pepsi. These pay you a percentage of passive income every quarter, regardless of the stock price. Secondly, we have core sector stocks such as healthcare, utilities, and consumer goods. These should be relatively recession-proof and always in demand. Thirdly, we have my favourite of all time, index funds, which are basically baskets full of stocks, allowing you to own a piece of all of them with one simple investment. Historically, this has been a very safe way to invest. I've made a few videos covering this in more detail. Feel free to check them out afterwards. A good place to buy stocks is on the public app. They allow you to buy fractional shares, and therefore you can invest however much you feel comfortable with. They're also giving you a free stock slice worth between $3,000 and $1,000 when you sign up and fund your account with the link in the description. Number two is buying real estate because it's one of the fastest ways to grow your net worth. During the dot-com boom, I was investing heavily and struck it pretty big with a few stocks. During times like these, it feels like you just can't go wrong. However, I was noticing some of the early signs of a bubble forming, such as everyone believing the hype that the internet would change everything. This of course eventually happened, but not before effectively destroying hundreds of dot-com companies that had poor business models. I even remember Amazon having a huge drop in value. It's a bit like what we're seeing with Web3 and Metaverse stocks at the moment. Luckily, I noticed this just before the bubble burst. I took my profits and then diversified into commercial real estate. We're currently standing outside my first ever industrial unit. This is where I started my second business. This cost me $100,000. However, I took out $85,000 in profit from my initial $15,000 investment into dot-com stocks. So I managed to diversify into real estate for effectively only $15,000. Later, I moved my businesses to my bigger warehouses, and now this is a fancy dress shop. The beauty of real estate is that you can leverage your money with mortgages, meaning you can take control of property worth hundreds of thousands of dollars with a much smaller deposit, and then pay back the interest on the loan with the money you're receiving in rental income, and of course make some profit on the side. I love these smaller commercial buildings because you can split them up and rent them to smaller businesses, just like a HMO. I also love that you can get into real estate with little to no money with something called deal sourcing, as there are always investors looking for a good deal. So if you can find one, investors will take it off your hands and pay you a premium. Do this enough times and you'll have enough deposit faster than you can say HMO. Number 3 is buying precious metals. I'm talking pure gold and silver, not this type. The reason this isn't a great investment is because you've got the added labour and the reselling costs, meaning the price isn't based on the actual value of the precious metal. Robert Kiyosaki, author of the popular book Rich Dad Poor Dad, is a huge supporter of buying gold and silver. He calls it God's money. Robert is uneasy about the current situation in the financial markets. I mean, it wasn't long ago that the US stock exchanges were at their all-time highs, and it was reported that half of the new millionaires only became so because of the constant growth of the markets. However, he has believed for some time now that the growth of stocks has been mostly funded by debt. Kiyosaki calls his fortunes fake. Therefore, he thinks they will be destroyed by the next financial crisis just as easily as they were created. Not that I believe all of this, however, precious metal is certainly a good store of value. There's a few different ways to buy precious metals. The first is to actually buy the physical commodity, such as gold bullion. And the second is to simply purchase a gold ETF on your favourite stock app. Personally, I would always buy physical gold because it's real and you can store it in a vault, ready to turn back into cash at a drop of a hat. The issue with gold ETFs is that they might not have enough gold to service a mass withdrawal, and I'd always feel more comfortable with the asset in my control. Number 4 is buying blue chip crypto. It's no secret that Bitcoin has been the best performing asset of the last decade, and I'm sure I also don't need to remind you about the state of the market at the moment. It's a bloodbath, which could be the perfect time to snap up some amazing deals. I remember the first time I heard about Bitcoin, it was on a TV interview, and I honestly thought it was some kind of scam. Even the guy that was being interviewed didn't seem to be able to articulate what Bitcoin was really about. This really annoys me, as this first negative impression had a real impact on my attitude towards crypto for years. Fast forward to 2020 and crypto reared its head once again after coming out of quite a stagnant period known as the crypto winter. I was still very skeptical, however my son Curtis didn't have the same beliefs as me and was investing himself and seeing returns that dwarfed my stock portfolio percentages. After sitting and chatting with him about the space, I dipped my toe in the water and I haven't stopped since. This doesn't mean I'm buying lots of different altcoins, especially in market crashes, as many of them just won't recover. However, the blue chip ones, I'm talking Bitcoin and Ethereum, are definitely more long-term plays. Number 5 is buying things for a side hustle. There's lots of different options here, such as the online route or something more physical in person, depending on your skill set. This is the absolute best way to get ahead of everybody else during a crash, as cash is king, and the more money you're generating, the more money you can invest. Recently, I chatted to 21-year-old Jack on my podcast, and he revealed how he is generating over $100,000 per month from Amazon FBA. So how scalable do you think your business is?
I want to be doing $1 million a month by next year on Amazon. Do I think that's possible? Yes. Do I think it's achievable? Yes. Do I think I'm going to achieve it? No. Do I think me and my team are going to work together to do so? Yes. It's not going to be easy though. It's going to be really, really tough.
This was all scaled from just a laptop and an internet connection. The best part of all is it was just started as a side hustle. Your side hustle doesn't have to make $100,000 a month, although that would be nice. However, even an extra $100 generated is a chunk of cash you wouldn't have had before. So just be on the lookout for anything you can buy that you can use to make a solid return on investment. This could be the best purchase I've ever made. It's my golf club membership. Around 2012, I was still dealing with the aftermath of the 2008 recession, and my stress levels were sky high. So I decided to take up golf as a way to relax and de-stress. Even if you don't have time to play a sport or enough money to pay for a gym membership, even going for a walk can help you de-stress to help you make better decisions. So the secret to actually becoming rich in a crash is to firstly escape the debt trap society has set for you by changing the way you think about money. Secondly, consider the return on investment of every item you buy and maximize this wherever possible. And thirdly, avoid high levels of stress, as this causes you to act irrationally during a crash. So I'm going to leave the next video right up there, but don't click on it just yet. Make sure to subscribe if you want to grow your wealth, okay? I'll see you over there.